I know you are tired. Not just tired in your body, the way you are after a long day of work. No, this is a different kind of tired. This is a weariness in your bones, a fatigue deep in your soul. I know you are tired of carrying this invisible weight that you can't name, but you feel it every morning when you wake up and every night when you lie in the dark, wondering, is this it? Is this the life I worked so hard to build? Because from the outside, it looks right. It checks all the boxes. And yet, from the inside, something is profoundly, achingly wrong. You feel restless, ready to overturn the whole table, and you don't even know why. The world tells you it's a midlife crisis, a phase, a hormonal glitch, something to be managed, medicated, or ignored until it passes. But you and I, we know that's a lie. It's a lie we tell ourselves to avoid a terrifying and beautiful truth. What is happening to you is not a breakdown. It is an excavation. Your soul is digging its way out from underneath a lifetime of shoulds and musts and have-tos. Imagine for a moment that for your entire life, you have been wearing a heavy coat. When you were very young, it was given to you. It wasn't a punishment. In fact, it was an act of love. It was a coat of protection, woven from the expectations of your family, the rules of your school, the values of your culture. It was lined with the need to be good, to be liked, to be safe, and you learned, very quickly, how to wear it well. Perhaps you sewed a patch on it that said, "The Responsible One." It was a heavy patch, but people admired it. They counted on you. So you bore its weight. Maybe you added another patch, the Achiever. This one was shiny. It gleamed in the light of awards and promotions. It earned you respect and validation. So you straightened your shoulders and carried that too. There might be a patch for the Peacemaker, soft and gray, that absorbed every conflict and silenced your own voice to keep things calm. A patch for the Caretaker, that put everyone else's needs before your own until you forgot you even had needs. The Strong One, the good son, the dutiful daughter, the perfect partner. Look at your coat. See all the patches you've sewn on over the years. Each one a role you learned to play, a mask you learned to wear. And for the first half of your life, this coat served you. It kept you warm in the cold winds of judgment. It gave you an identity. It helped you navigate the world. People knew you by your coat. In a way, you knew you by your coat. It was who you were. But now, something has changed. You've reached the top of the mountain you were told to climb, and you're standing here in this heavy, heavy coat, and you realize you can't feel the sun. You can't feel the wind on your skin. The coat that once protected you has become a prison. It is cumbersome. It is suffocating. And it is so heavy. You can barely lift your arms anymore. And the fatigue you feel, that bone-deep weariness, is the sheer, raw effort of carrying this coat, day in and day out, for 20, 30, maybe 40 years. The crisis isn't that your life is falling apart. The crisis is that you can no longer bear the weight of the pretense. Before we go any further into this, I want to ask something of you. I want you to make a small, sacred pledge. Not to me, to yourself. I want you to give yourself this hour. All of it. Don't multitask. Don't check your phone. Find a place where you can be alone, perhaps with a cup of tea, perhaps on a walk in nature. This isn't about consuming more information. This is an act of deep listening, an act of radical self-love. Agree to stay here, in this space with me, for the full 60 minutes, as a gift to the part of you that is so tired of carrying that coat. Consider this a private appointment, the most important one you'll have all week, an appointment with your own soul. If you are willing to make that promise, let's begin. Let's go back, not to a specific memory, but to a feeling. Do you remember what it was like to be a child? Do you remember being small in a world of giants, where your entire survival depended on the love and approval of the big people around you? You were a genius at figuring out the rules. You were a master observer of what brought a smile to your mother's face, what brought a nod of approval from your father, what earned you a gold star from your teacher. You didn't do this consciously. It was instinct. The instinct to belong, to be safe, to be loved. And in that learning, you discovered something. You discovered that certain parts of you were celebrated, and other parts were less welcome. Maybe your wild, loud, joyful energy was met with a shh, calm down, so you learned to be quiet. Maybe your tears, your big, messy feelings were met with stop crying, you're fine, so you learned to be strong. Maybe your desire to just play, to do nothing, was met with what have you accomplished today, so you learned to be productive. Maybe your righteous anger at an injustice was met with don't be difficult, so you learned to be compliant. With each of those interactions, a thread was woven, a tiny, almost invisible thread, and these threads, over years and years, were woven into the fabric of your coat. The coat was made of every part of yourself you had to disown to be loved. It was stitched together with every truth you learned not to speak. It was buttoned up with every need you learned to swallow. You put it on because you had to. It was a brilliant strategy for a child who needed to survive in their world. It was not a mistake. It was a masterpiece of adaptation. You learned that love was conditional, and you met the conditions. You became the person you needed to be. And it worked. You survived. You succeeded. You built a life. But the child who first put on that coat is still inside you. And that child has grown up. And the world that demanded the coat has faded. But you are still wearing it. You're wearing it at the dinner table with your partner. You're wearing it in board meetings. You're wearing it with your children, with your friends. You've worn it for so long you've forgotten it's even there. All you know is the weight. All you know is the exhaustion. All you know is the quiet, persistent feeling that you have become a stranger to yourself. And that, my friend, is the beginning of the awakening. That feeling is not your enemy. It is a messenger. It is your soul, knocking from the inside, whispering, it's time. It's time to take off the coat. That part of your mind, the architect of this coat. Let's take a moment to honor it. It wasn't foolish. It wasn't weak. It was brilliant. It was a child's genius for survival, for love, for belonging. Think of it. As a small person, you navigated the complex emotional currents of your family. You decoded the unspoken rules of your world. And you fashioned for yourself a self that could weather it all. A self that would be accepted. A self that would be praised. The coat was your armor in a battle you didn't even know you were fighting. It protected your soft, vulnerable heart from the chill of rejection or the sting of disapproval. It worked so well, in fact, that you came to believe the coat was you. The problem is not that you created a coat. The problem is that you are now an adult, living in a completely different climate, still dressed for a winter that ended decades ago. The strategies that guaranteed your survival as a child are the very same strategies that are suffocating your soul as an adult. The need to please everyone, which once kept you safe, now prevents you from knowing your own desires. The drive to achieve, which once earned you love, now leaves you feeling empty and disconnected from your own life. The habit of staying silent to keep the peace, which once protected you from conflict, now breeds a deep and silent resentment in your heart. The coat is no longer protecting you. It is hiding you. From the world, yes, but more tragically, from yourself. And now, if it feels safe enough, I want you to do something with me. If you're not driving, I invite you to gently close your eyes. If you are, just keep your focus soft. Let's just pause the story for a moment. I want you to take one deep, slow breath, in through your nose and out through your mouth with a sigh. Let your shoulders drop. Let the tension in your jaw release. And now, with your awareness turned inward, I want you to feel the coat, not with your hands, but with your inner senses. Just bring your attention to its presence. Feel its weight. Where does it press down on you? Is it a heaviness across your shoulders? A burden you've carried for so long it feels normal? Is it a tightness in your chest, a band of pressure that makes it hard to take a full breath? Perhaps it's a knot in your stomach, a constant, low-grade anxiety that hums just beneath the surface of your day. Maybe it's a lump in your throat, holding back all the words you've never said. Don't try to change it. Don't judge it, just notice it. Be a curious, compassionate observer. This is not just a metaphor. This is the physical embodiment of your emotional truth. This is your body, in its infinite wisdom, speaking to you. For years, it has been sending you signals, and for years, you have been too busy, too distracted, too afraid to listen. But right now, you are listening. Hello, tightness. Hello, heaviness. I feel you. I acknowledge you. This is the first step, just to notice. Take one more breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes. That sensation you just located in your body, that is the key. That weight is not just the weight of the coat itself. It's also the weight of everything you had to cast aside to put it on. This is what Jung called the shadow. It's not evil. It's not dark in a moral sense. It is simply everything about you that was deemed unacceptable by the outside world, and therefore by your younger self. It is the parts of you that have been living in psychological exile. What did you have to leave behind in the cold when you first put on your heavy coat? Think about it. If you put on the coat of the good girl, you probably had to exile your righteous anger, your ambition, your healthy selfishness. If you put on the coat of the tough guy, you most likely had to banish your vulnerability, your tears, your need for comfort and tenderness. If your coat is that of the intellectual, perhaps you exiled your intuition, your creativity, your messy, illogical, playful self. These parts of you did not die. They did not disappear. They just went into the shadow, and they have been out there, waiting. For years, they waited patiently. But now, at midlife, their patience is running out. The energy of your psyche is shifting. It is no longer content to invest everything in maintaining the external persona, the coat. It is now demanding wholeness. It is demanding integration. It is demanding that you go out into the cold and bring these exiled parts of yourself back home. And how do they get your attention? They don't send a polite email. They create a crisis. Your exiled anger might show up as chronic irritability, a sarcastic edge in your voice, or a sudden rage that seems to come from nowhere. Your exiled vulnerability might appear as inexplicable tears while you're driving, a deep sense of loneliness even when you're surrounded by people, or a health scare that forces you to admit you are not invincible. Your exiled creativity might manifest as a profound boredom with your life, a desperate restlessness, or a fantasy about quitting your job and running away to a place where no one knows your name. This is the midlife tempest. It feels chaotic and destructive. It feels like you are losing your mind. But what is actually happening is that your psyche is trying to get you to take off the coat and meet the parts of yourself you've abandoned. The crisis is a summons, a holy invitation to become whole. The terror you feel is not the terror of breaking down. It is the terror of finally, after all these years, breaking open. And this is where the cost becomes clear. The invisible price you have been paying for wearing this coat for so long. It shows up in your most intimate relationships. Think about your partner. Do they know the person underneath the coat? Or have they been in a relationship with your well-managed representative, the ambassador you send out into the world every day? You perform the role of the good spouse, the supportive partner, but deep down, a chasm of loneliness has opened up, because to be truly seen and loved, you must first be willing to be truly seen. And the coat, by its very nature, makes that impossible. You crave intimacy, but you offer performance. You yearn to be known, but you hide. And you wonder why you feel so alone, lying next to the person you love. It's because the real you has been locked away, and only your persona is sharing the bed. The invisible divorce isn't about falling out of love. It's about the slow, tragic realization that the person you married may have never even met the real you. It shows up in your career. You did everything right. You got the education, you climbed the ladder, you achieved the success you were supposed to want. You bought the lie that fulfillment was waiting for you at the top, but you got there, and you looked around, and all you felt was nothing. A hollow echo where a sense of purpose was supposed to be. This is the devastating discovery that you spent 20 years climbing a ladder that was leaning against the wrong wall. The wrong wall for you, for your soul. The coat of the achiever chose the ladder, but your authentic self never wanted to climb it. And now you're trapped, high above the ground, in a life that provides security but no meaning, and you're terrified to let go because your entire identity is tied up in being the person at the top of that specific ladder. And it shows up in your relationship with yourself. You live with a constant, low-grade anxiety, a hum of dread beneath the surface. It is the fear of being found out, the imposter syndrome that whispers you are a fraud, and that one day everyone will see it. You expend enormous amounts of energy managing perceptions, controlling outcomes, and making sure the coat never slips. You numb the discomfort with work, with wine, with scrolling, with shopping, with anything to avoid the terrifying silence where your own unmet needs might speak up. You treat your body like a machine to be optimized and your feelings as inconveniences to be managed. Your self-worth isn't a deep, internal well. It's a fragile construction that depends on constant external validation. And the exhaustion of this, the sheer, soul-crushing effort of it all, is becoming unbearable. This is the point where the coat begins to change. It's no longer just heavy, it's starting to get tighter. It's constricting your breath. The seams are straining. The fabric, once a comfort, now chafes your skin, leaving it raw and irritated. The parts of you that you exiled into the shadow, they are not waiting patiently in the cold anymore. They are banging on the door of your consciousness. They are rattling the windows of your carefully constructed life. That sudden, explosive anger you feel at the person driving too slowly in front of you, that's not about the traffic. That's 20 years of your exiled rage at having to be so damn nice all the time, finally finding a crack to get out. That overwhelming urge to have an affair, to connect with someone who sees you as you are right now, not as the person you've been for 20 years. That's your exiled longing for authentic connection, for passion, for being seen beyond the coat. That deep, melancholic sadness that descends on a Sunday afternoon for no reason at all. That is the grief of your own soul, mourning the life it has not been allowed to live. These are not signs that you are broken. They are signs that your system is working perfectly. Your psyche is trying to save you from a life half-lived. It is staging an intervention. It is willing to burn the village down to save the child. It knows that time is running out. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is your one precious life. And the stakes are getting higher. The coat is no longer a choice. It feels like a straitjacket. And then comes the moment. It rarely arrives with a lightning bolt. It comes quietly. It comes in a moment of utter, profound exhaustion. Maybe it happens one morning, the alarm clock goes off, and the thought of getting up and putting on the coat again, of smiling the smile, playing the part, carrying the weight feels not just difficult, but physically impossible. The weight of it is already on your chest before your feet have even hit the floor. Maybe it comes in the middle of the night, when you wake up in a cold sweat from a dream you can't quite remember, but you know it was about being trapped. And you lie there in the dark, and for the first time, you admit the truth to yourself. I cannot do this anymore. Or maybe it's a moment in the car, on the way home from work, when a particular song comes on the radio, and you are suddenly weeping, not crying, weeping. A deep, guttural sob that comes from a place you didn't know existed. It's the cry of the exiled child who has finally been heard. It's the sound of surrender. The breaking point isn't a moment of weakness. It is the moment your true strength finally breaks through the facade. It's the moment you stop fighting reality. The moment you stop pretending. The moment you whisper to the universe, or to yourself, or to God, "Help me. I don't know who I am without this coat, but I know I will die inside if I have to wear it for one more day." And if you are at that point right now, or if you can feel it coming, just over the horizon, if you are that tired, that lost, that broken open, I want to say something to you, directly to your heart. Welcome. You have arrived. This is not the end. You are not failing. This pain, this crisis, this falling apart is not a sign that you have taken a wrong turn. It is a sign that you have finally found the path. This is the sacred ground of transformation. It is okay to be this tired. It is okay to feel this lost. It is okay to let go. You can stop holding it all together now. Just for this moment. In this space, you can let it all fall. Breathe. Just breathe into that feeling of exhaustion. The war you've been fighting, it's been against yourself. And you are finally ready to sign the peace treaty. And what if I told you the truth about that coat? What if I told you that for all these years, you've been laboring under a profound illusion? You have felt trapped by it, imprisoned in it. You have pulled and strained against its weight. But here is the secret. The coat has no buttons. It has no zipper. It has no locks. All this time, you have not been trapped inside it. You have been holding it closed. With all your might, with clenched fists and a tight jaw, you've been gripping the edges of it together, believing that, if you let go, everything would fall apart, that the cold would overwhelm you, that you would be unlovable, that you would be nothing. The awakening is the moment you realize that the prison door was never locked. You were the guard. And the freedom you have been aching for is not something you need to earn, or find, or fight for. It is something you simply have to allow. It begins with the unclenching of a fist. And feeling the coat, your persona, the weight of a lifetime of expectations, simply fall away from your shoulders and drop to the floor in a heap. Feel that for a moment. The image of it. The sound it makes as it lands. And you, standing there without it, for the first time in decades. You might feel naked, exposed, vulnerable, a little cold, even. That's okay. That is the feeling of being real. That is the feeling of your own skin, meeting the air for the first time. This is where the real journey begins. Not the journey of building a new, better coat, but the journey of learning to live without one. This is the work of the second half of life. It's not about finding the answers. It's about learning to live in the questions. It's about becoming whole. And this happens not through grand, dramatic gestures, but through small, consistent, internal shifts in how you relate to yourself. I want to offer you 3 of these shifts now, not as rules, but as invitations. The first shift is from being your own harshest critic to becoming your own compassionate witness. You know the voice of the critic. It's the one that tells you you're not doing enough, that you're selfish for wanting more, that you're foolish for feeling this way. It's the voice that berates you for being tired and tells you to just push through. That voice is the voice of the coat. It's the internalized voice of all the external expectations you absorbed as a child. For your whole life, you have mistaken that voice for the truth. Your work now is not to obey it or argue with it. Your work is simply to notice it. And then, with intention, to cultivate a different voice. The voice of a loving parent, speaking to a deeply tired child. When the critic says, "You can't rest now, you have too much to do," the compassionate witness steps in and whispers, "Oh, my love, you are so exhausted. I see how hard you've been working. It's okay. Let's just rest for 5 minutes. The world can wait." This is not about letting yourself off the hook. This is about parenting yourself with the kindness and unconditional love you may never have received. It is the beginning of healing. The second shift is from a life of obligation to a life of devotion. The first half of your life was likely driven by obligation. Obligation to your parents' dreams for you, to your career, to your family, to your persona. You did what you should do. The second half of life is an invitation to turn your attention toward devotion. Devotion to what? To the quiet, subtle, sacred whispers of your own soul. The things you have been longing for but have dismissed as frivolous, selfish, or impossible. It doesn't have to be grand. You don't need to quit your job and move to an ashram. Devotion can start with 5 minutes. A 5-minute devotion to staring out the window. A 5-minute devotion to listening to a piece of music that breaks your heart open. A 5-minute devotion to writing one honest sentence in a journal. A 5-minute devotion to walking barefoot on the grass. You take the immense energy you were using to uphold your obligations to the coat, and you redirect a tiny fraction of it toward what truly nourishes your spirit. This practice, over time, builds a new internal compass. You stop navigating by the map of should, and you start navigating by the stars of your own inner knowing. The third and final shift is from repression to integration. This is the heart of the work. You spent the first half of life repressing, exiling, and disowning all the parts of you that didn't fit the coat. Your anger, your grief, your vulnerability, your wildness. The second half is about bringing them home. Integration doesn't mean you let your rage run the show, or that you collapse into a puddle of grief. It means you make a space for these energies at the table of your consciousness. You learn to befriend them. When you feel anger rising, instead of swallowing it or exploding, you can pause and say, "Ah, anger is here. Hello, old friend. Thank you for showing up. What boundary of mine has been crossed? What do you need me to pay attention to?" When you feel the familiar ache of sadness, instead of numbing it, you can allow it. You can say, "Grief is visiting today. It's here to remind me of what I've lost and what I loved." You stop seeing these emotions as problems to be solved, and you start seeing them as messengers, carrying profound wisdom. You become a host to all of your feelings, all of your parts. You become bigger than any one part. That is wholeness. That is the gift of taking off the coat. You get all of you back. This is the work. It is not easy. It is the work of a lifetime. But it is the greatest adventure you will ever embark upon. The adventure of becoming who you truly are. Feel the air on your skin again. It might feel strange at first. You might feel a little wobbly without the familiar weight on your shoulders. That's okay. That is the feeling of new strength being born. The feeling of authenticity. The feeling of freedom. If this journey we've taken together resonated with you, if you felt a flicker of recognition deep in your soul, I invite you to make a small, public promise to yourself. A declaration of intent. In the comments below, just type these 6 words. I am taking off the coat. It's not for me. It's for you. A simple anchor for this moment. A statement to the universe and to the deepest part of yourself that you are ready. Ready for what comes next. Remember this. Your crisis is not a curse. It is the cracking of the shell you have outgrown. Your life is not over. It has just begun.